Greetings YouTube, this is the Nervin, and today I want to do three video responses in one video. And firstly, I want to respond to Tim's question, Samurai 7 RPG, how much game prep a GM should be doing, in your opinion, or rather in this case in mine. And I've actually been thinking quite a lot about that because, as Tim mentioned, he mentioned that he was getting, um, well, more unwilling to do game prep as the game progresses. Whereas in the beginning it's easier, and I have a similar experience. Um, and I in the beginning it's usually you have an idea for a campaign or for a setting or something, and you work on it just for your own interest, or at least that's for me how it is. And then players come into the whole thing, and you start to do it for someone else, and that also gives you a kick, and so on. And over time it can become something out of the ordinary, and you don't do as much game prep as you probably should, because it's coming into a trot, or something. Um, and I Nowadays I have a certain time limit I want to keep of game prep, just to make sure that I'm prepped as best as possible. Also, I want to stop myself from over prepping, because that is something I've done in the past, and I will elaborate on that in another in another response in this same video. And so I roughly want to prep the game for about as much time as the actual game session will take. So if I plan for a 5-hour game session, then I at least try to prep about 5 hours. Well, usually it's not that much, actually. I will rather, it will probably be 3 hours or something. So somewhere between half and once the time that you are actually playing goes to game prep. And this is one of the reasons why I couldn't do a long time or a long session weekly game, for example. If I would do 6 hours a week, I simply don't have the time in 1 week for 6 hours of game prep. And this is one of the reasons why, even though it's quite short, I like the current Auckland campaign with Chris Bradshaw, Francois Letarte, and other Tim, because it's weekly, and so I get my regular fix. To elaborate, and I don't have to prep as much. We only play for 2 hours roughly, and I can prep for as long as that and keep my own timeline, and it's not really that much of a hassle to do 2 hours of game prep per week, even with a busy schedule. Yeah. So that's how much I think. As far as the expectance of other GMs, I actually have not that much expectancy of other GMs to prep. Actually, one of my friends has recently started to GM, and um, she put so much effort into it, as I have done in the beginning. Um, and well, let's say at this point in time, I change to respond to a different video, and I will respond to the video of Rhaegar the Dragonborn, who wanted us to tell our past selves a couple of tips as far as GMing is concerned. Learning from your past mistakes and so on. And one of my mistakes, and I believe it's her mistake as a beginner, is to do incredibly amounts of prep work. To think everything through and to believe that if you work hard enough, you will be prepared for everything because you've already thought about it. And that's really not how things work. Um, I tried that for a long time, and not only does it not work because you don't actually, you're not able to outthink what four to five different people who are playing with you will come up with when they encounter the situations you dreamt up. Um, you will more than likely be better handling these situations if you, or at least I, when I respond to them spontaneously. I didn't trust myself with spontaneity very much in my earlier days, and that is one thing I regret a bit. I think in the past couple of years I have proven to myself that um, sometimes the spontaneous things that I come up with um, to respond to things my players do are much better actually than stuff that I have thought through. And maybe possibly even it's because I didn't have time to think it through. They are more interesting because I didn't polish out any mistakes that or anything that doesn't fit, but because I just do a quick shot and then I have to live with what I did, and I can maneuver around it, and I'm forced to maneuver with these situations, so that, for example, I have to explain something that's on the front doesn't seem very logical. But of course, as human nature goes, there is nothing absolute, and you can explain almost anything, and the more complicated it becomes, the more interesting it seems. So, in short, that would be one of my major tips to my past self. Be more spontaneous and don't use as much time prepping a game as you did. Another thing is don't limit yourself uh, to one game as I have done, or at least one game universe, because I was very much a World of Darkness man, and World of Darkness alone for one campaign. But to be fair, the longest campaign I ever played as a player was the Dark Eye. Um, but other than that, I only did World of Darkness, and for years and years and years. And I didn't read anything else, and I, even though still like the World of Darkness, I think I've overdone it, and it's hard for me now to see it as something entertaining and to see something that I haven't seen before. It's burned out a little on me, and That's one thing. And also, when I began making these videos roughly 3 years ago, um, that's when I finally thought about doing other games. When the scales fell from my eyes and I finally picked up other books and looked at them for a very long time the first time. And it is actually much more entertaining and inspiring to look at different things than always reiterating, or not reiterating, but only to look at this different parts of the same thing. Even though that's a very in-depth thing, it's also somewhat incestuous, if you will. Um, you're not exposed to that much new stuff. Um, and imagination is best when it runs wild. So that would be another tip I would give myself. Don't be so focused on one system, one setting, and so on. And a third one. This is actually the hardest one because I really liked doing it. Um, I built elaborate settings for World of Darkness. Um, I have 3 city books done for myself. Well, not in a way that I could publish them, of course, but at least for myself. I have pages and pages and pages and pages of shorthands and characters and scenes I wanted to play, and so on, and adventure ideas for these cities and descriptions of places and so on. And none of these groups lasted for more than 10 sessions. And it's in total, this is probably 4 years of spare time work. And that's, in a way, really frustrating. Um, and I would really like to save myself this frustration. Um, Maybe I could give myself the tip, focus more on one setting and try to fit all the groups into this one setting, and so you can focus on one thing and actually use it rather than switching all around because your players want something different. Um, yeah, so that would be another thing. In this case, stay more focused. Doesn't really fit with what I said before, but as I said, anything can be explained. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't think I come to 5 as you wanted, Dragar, but these 3 things I believe are the most important things I learned. Oh, and a fourth. Um, don't buy so many World of Darkness books that are in the tertiary line, as I would call them, like Gilded Cage, for example. Um, and even some of the clan books. Um, they're very dry reads, and you don't learn that much more than you learn from the short snippets that are in the core rulebook. Um, I'm not sure. I think I could have saved a good amount of money if I had bought a bit less like a hoarder and or a collector, and used a bit more time in the bookstore to actually look through if there's anything interesting in the books. Because even though the World of Darkness has a great amount of good books, they're, they are not all gold, and some aren't even wood. But yeah, I think you can probably say that about any setting or any game line. So I would give myself the tip to uh, be a bit more of a critical buyer. But then again, when I bought these, I didn't have YouTube to look at reviews of books, so since then I have been a more critical buyer. Oh, so we made it up to 4. Um, but at the moment, at least, I can't think of a 5th. Um, so I've done the response about um, the GM prep time. I've done the response about tips to my past self, and now I want to respond to a fistful of dice who asked how you introduce players to RPGs, new players. Um, and he explained how he would do it, and I over the last couple of years I've also developed a standard mode, if you will, how I introduce new players into my campaigns. This is even for established or people who are actually established role players but are not familiar with the setting or with the group they are going to play with. Um, I usually do a separate um, gaming session. You don't, even if the group is already in place and only a new member is to be added, I hand out new characters to everyone, or at least I generate a couple and let them choose what they want to play for the evening, and we do a one shot. This is for one reason: the new player doesn't have to generate a character, which can be quite daunting if you do it for the first time, especially if you're forced to keep this character for the time to come. Um, and this way they can try something out and see if it fits. And what doesn't fit gets changed when you make the real character. Um, Also, whatever they do with this character doesn't go over to the real group, so they can make mistakes without any problems. And this is kind of a safety net, if you will, because when you are new to the stuff, you might do something you wouldn't do as a real character, just because you're not yet fully into the thought, or maybe because you really don't know or understand the setting as you would later in the day. And what I usually do as a I basically do a tutorial, if you will. Um, I do a story that has a lot of educational material in it. For example, in The Dark Eye, I did a session where all the characters were children in a school and they had a lesson in history, one in geography, and one in theology. And so they learned a couple of things about Aventuria and how everything went through, and they did it through the eyes of their characters, which of course is a flawed view, and this is exactly the kind of view I want to give them. One that is in character, because everything they may have learned is could be flawed, and the other characters might not even know about this, or they might have heard it differently, you know? And so I don't want to hand out texts for them to read, which are basically always taken as fact, whereas stuff you have experienced in play are more can be more mutated, if you will. So, um, yeah, and of course, after this educational phase is over, I usually try to mix in a different kind of, a bit of more action oriented story for them to get used to the dice mechanics and so on, and to have a bit of a fun romp about the place. Of course, the theme and the mood are fitted to the setting. For example, in Vampire, when we did this, I had the new players, or all the players, once there were a couple of caitiff embraced against their will, and in the other session I had them play a rogue Sabbath pack on their way to the city in which the campaign was set, and they murdered their way right through the countryside. Um, yeah, so it's not always fun in the setting, but it's supposed to be fun for the players at least. And if you set these stories up in the correct way, you can rescue these things to use in later. For example, I always had the plan to use the actions of the Sabbat pack as the background for adventures in this city, for the Camarilla characters, the that were the main characters of the players, as well as an investigation around the occurrence of these caitiffs. But sadly, the group has stopped meeting, so who knows if this will ever continue. Yeah, so I've done 3 reviews today, not reviews, sorry, responses. Why do I have such a hard time saying responses? Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm the Nerobin. See you.